Witness from the BBC World Service with me, Ashley Byrne. Today we're going back to the late 1960s and the story of how a British landmark was sold to an American millionaire from Arizona. It was in July 1967 that headlines first started to appear in English newspapers suggesting that a buyer was wanted for London Bridge. Londoners couldn't quite believe it, but it turned out to be true.
The only way in which it can be preserved is to sell it in its entirety.
You wouldn't consider selling it piecemeal then? You know, I understand you may have had some offers for lampposts or balustrades.
Yes, we've had several offers from private individuals. Does that mean that the bridge would be dispersed over a wide area and you'd lose its individuality completely?
London Bridge, known to children all over the world because of the nursery rhyme, wasn't actually falling down, but it was about to be dismantled stone by stone and replaced with a new bridge. Opened by King William IV in 1831, the London Bridge in question had replaced a medieval bridge, but by the 1960s it was struggling to cope with the sheer weight of modern traffic and sinking into the River Thames. It was too expensive to maintain, and so it was decided it should be pulled down and sold for scrap. But one local politician, called Ivan Luckin, felt it should be saved. His friend and colleague Archie Galloway remembers.
He felt that the city would find a buyer if it was up for sale, because of the historical content and the nursery rhyme, etc. I gather he was greeted with some sort of mirth at the suggestion. And somebody then asked what sort of money he would get if they were selling it. And he seemingly stuck his finger in the air and said £1 million. And so there was more laughter about his decision.
There was little interest at first, apart from a schoolgirl in California who enclosed $1 for a small stone from the bridge, and a telegram from 4 men in the British Virgin Islands offering $100. But Ivan Luckin felt sure Americans would be interested, and he embarked on a tour of the USA to publicise the sale.
And so a glossy brochure was prepared, and as far as I know, he only actually went to America and mostly to New York, which was, of course, where the deal was done.
And that deal was done with Robert P McCulloch, a US industrialist who was building a town from scratch next to Lake Havasu in Arizona. He paid over £1 million, $2.4 million at the time, for the 130,000 tonnes of stone which made up London Bridge.
I can't say to anyone how important I think it is that this bridge had got this nursery rhyme. To my mind, there were clear parallels in one way or another. London Bridge is falling down, and here it was being taken down. I think English emigres who've been all on every corner of the globe, it was a story that entertained and was extraordinary to be able to dismantle a piece of engineering and to find that somebody would pay you good money for what it was made of.
Once the deal was done, people in Britain became highly protective of their famous landmark. There were calls in the British Parliament for the government to intervene and stop the sale. Some people were worried that more heritage sites might get sold off if the country wasn't willing to maintain them.
You can't trust them, can you? You go away for a month or so, and they're at it again. They're always got to be knocking down something or other. Surely they could have left London Bridge alone. Don't they realise what it means to me as a Londoner? Just look at it. Ain't nothing sacred these days.
And no one could quite believe that London Bridge was going to be rebuilt in the desert.
Well, you know, with all due respect to your town, which I'm sure is very pleasant, don't you think that London Bridge is going to look rather ludicrously out of place in the middle of the Arizona desert?
No, actually, I don't. You see, a bridge is a bridge, and it's necessary for us to have a bridge in this particular place, and so we feel that an attractive bridge like the London one would be much more effective than just an ordinary bridge, which anybody can go build.
Well, what kind of tourist attractions are you going to put on or around or near the bridge?
I think that the bridge itself is enough of an attraction, and we're going to attempt to re-erect it in proper taste. We probably will have some restaurants around the bridge area, but there will be no honky-tonk effect or anything like that, because after all, this is going to be the entrance to a 2,000-acre state park.
And to a certain extent he was right. It did become a tourist attraction eventually, although there were rumours that the American tycoon hadn't really known what he was buying and had actually set his heart on the arguably more spectacular and interesting Tower Bridge, the one which opens in the middle to allow ships to sail under it.
There was a photograph of the McCulloch father and son, and there was a photograph of them standing on London Bridge looking at Tower Bridge, and that helped to confirm the rumour that whilst they were standing on one bridge they were looking at another one, and that was the one that they thought they were getting. But there's absolutely no evidence for that anywhere.
But despite all the doubts and controversy, the sale went through and was dubbed the biggest antique sale in the world by the Guinness Book of Records, and even the leftover rubble was made into souvenirs.
There's a wide range, from a small chip of bridge here on its own, selling at about 80 pence. There's a table lighter with chippings of bridge set in the acrylic base. There are bookends, good solid pieces, no working parts. And there's a clock, the most expensive item, selling at about £22 with chippings of bridge set in the acrylic again. Fragments of history for sale, and from the way they're selling, it appears that the Americans are determined to have the whole bridge.
Now they've taken London Bridge away. We found love there.
Pop songs were even penned about the bridge's journey across the Atlantic. British singer Cilla Black and the group Red reference London Bridge in their lyrics.
London Bridge is finally falling down. They packed it up and shipped it out of town.
In America, the story captured the imagination of children all over the country. They'd grown up singing the nursery rhyme and learning all about London and its rich history. Debbie Eckelberger and Steve Greeley were children growing up in Lake Havasu at the time.
You know, just the chatter of hearing how it had come over piece by piece and put them together to make this beautiful bridge. For those who could not go to Europe, boy, this was the next best thing, that's for sure. And we used to sing the song, London Bridge is falling down, and it's going up in Lake Havasu.
Oh, it was a tremendous feat back in that time. The bridge was dismantled, shipped over across the pond, and then it was loaded on the docks over at Long Beach. And at that time, there was only one road going in and out of this area, out of Lake Havasu. And so to trek across the desert in the late 60s was something that was far more difficult than you would try to do that in today's world.
Everything was complete by October 1971, and London Bridge was finally officially opened in its new home to spectacular fanfare, a mix of US hoopla and British pop.
He imported the Lord Mayor of London, the Sheriff of the city, the Sword-bearer, the Common Crier and Sergeant-at-Arms, and the City Marshal. Like puppets in a theatre enacting the traditions of old London for a bemused desert audience. They performed
So nearly 50 years after London Bridge was first put up for sale, it's as popular as ever. And Archie Galloway says Ivan Luckin, the politician who came up with the idea of selling it in the first place, was very pleased with the way things worked out.
Oh, I think he was very pleased with it, very pleased indeed, because it was a success. Now it's the second biggest tourist attraction in Arizona. Number one is the Grand Canyon.
Archie Galloway, Debbie Eckelberger and Steve Greeley were speaking to me, Ashley Byrne, for this edition of Witness. It was a made-in-Manchester production for the BBC World Service.